So the turn my block here is not just a function of the coding. You also have to supply this one magic number. And it's called the magic number because there's no variable for it. It's just a number you put into the code and it makes everything magically work. Okay, typically magic numbers are considered bad, but in this sort of circumstance, it's perfectly acceptable. Another example of a magic number is actually 0.25 right here. In contrast, the file name is not a magic number because it's being passed as a variable through all this. Okay, the direction is not a magic number. It is stored as a variable and supplied to the program instead of just being hard-coded in there. So now, if I go back to my file driver, I will see that I can do this, break, exit, move, turn, wait. That's all cool. I can add stuff for, sound if I really wanted to. But let's say I had some my blocks that contained little chunks of code, like how to square off against a line. I recently put up 4 videos called Align Line, Align, A-L-I-G-N, Line, L-I-N. And sure enough, just a week later, found a much, much, much better way of doing that, so I'll be posting new videos soon. And what that does is it allows you to put your robot perpendicular to a black line. And you can do that very precisely, and with my new method, it can do it very, very quickly as well. So, let's say that you wanted to use that, but you didn't necessarily want to make a new my block for it. Okay, because you probably already have a my block for that align line stuff. Well, what you can do is you can create one tab in here that's going to control all of your my block stuff. So I'm going to select this switch in my file driver. I'm going to add a new thing in here, and I'm going to call it my block. I'm not using spaces at all. It's kind of intentional. And it's got the same sort of structure as everything else does. I'm going to read a name and open a file. I'm just going to turn this into a my block called FD my block, which is kind of a peculiar name, but it makes sense in context. Go ahead and click Finish. Open up the block. And here, I'm going to want to read which my block I'm going to want to run. So I'll simply say that it's a value, text, and you know what? Why don't I go ahead and display this my block's name as well? I'll display it on a line lower. I'm not going to clear this out. That way it will say, back here it will have my block written right here, and then very quickly thereafter it will write, imperceptibly quickly, it will write whatever the name of the my block is, like a line or whatnot. So in here, I'm going to go ahead and say, turn that to flat view. You can have one that is default, that does nothing, and you can have one that is, say, called align. You can have another for line follow, right? But I'm not going to show you how to program those. I'm just saying, hey, you can put them in these tabs if you want to. So let's say that we have a line my block. Whoops, where'd it go? Okay, I guess that doesn't want to work. There we go. This is a very old version of my block here. So all I'm going to do is that this program here is going to act like a driver. It's going to supply the information needed to the MyBlock, and that's it. It's not going to try and tell the MyBlock how to do its job. It's just giving it certain values. So for a line, in this case, I only have two variables, time and speed. And here you'll notice that my time is annotated as being in milliseconds. Of course, my modern versions, they are just in normal seconds. So I'm going to go to File Access, and I think it makes more sense to read the speed first. So I'm going to read the speed over here, connect it to there. In this, I'm going to, whoops, that was set to right. I almost messed up yet again. And over here, I'm going to set the time, second. So the way I would format that in my code is I would type out something like this. I would type out MyBlock, a line, and then I would say maybe 70 or 50% speed for 3,000 milliseconds, which is just, of course, 3 seconds. Then I could go down here and do whatever I wanted to, right? So this little piece of code here is not meant to show you how a line or any of these MyBlocks work. Just, hey, this is a convenient way of creating a little driver program for your MyBlocks. And that's really it. This is actually very powerful. I would also like to talk about one other thing before we're done. Is here, this block is set for break. Now, if you are just making some random new program and you have a series of move blocks, let's say that they are going forwards for a bit, and they're turning, you'll notice that they actually have a delay in between them. There are ways of changing how this works from instead of, whoops, set that to, no, not unlimited, yeah, it needs to be on rotations. Sorry. There are ways of changing this so that it will not have a delay between executing blocks, and that is achieved by setting it to unlimited and having a control loop that stops the motors once it gets to the specific time. You kind of run out of some of your options on how to move very precisely if you're doing that, because by using the move block like this, it's going to try and keep the motors balanced and stop them exactly where you wanted them to be, and generally play nice. So taking out those extra quarter of a second may or may not be worth it in the larger program, but what about when you're going and trying to rush to the rat? So using this fileDriver program and a slightly modified version of this move program, you can remove any delay between your movement commands. So you can get to that rat a full second earlier. You can get to the enemy's rat a full second earlier. You can all but guarantee that you're going to be able to score those rushing competitive elements against any team that's not using this method, as long as, of course, that you build your robot in an appropriate way. Okay, so that's all I really wanted to go over today. I know that was a ton of material. If you have questions, and I know people will, please go ahead and ask me. You can ask me here, or you can ask me on the FLL forums. It may be best to go ahead and ask on YouTube, since there's some permanence there, while the FLL forums seem to be purged every year. On the FLL forums, I'm SciQuest, just capital S, capital Q, no dashes, nothing else. So thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something. If you have questions, of course, please ask.